Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll just introduce myself again. My name is Beryl Curtis. I'm a Senior Accreditation Administrator at the RSS, and this is the eighth interview from the Future Leaders podcast. And I will kindly get my guests to introduce themselves as well.
Yeah, so I'll go first again. So my name is Ni. I work as a data scientist, my day job. Got a couple of associations with the RSS. So I work for the S4S as a volunteer. The main reason why I decided to join the leadership program is, for me, leadership is not something I consciously thought of when I started out in my career. So this will give me the exposure to meet hopefully leaders as well, but then to sort of define or refine my concept of leadership and find out what leadership is before I decide if that's something I want to go into. That's me.
Thank you.
I'm Shrishti. I'm a senior data scientist at Capital One. I've been there for just under 8 months now. My background is primarily in statistics, and I've been a member of the RSS for quite some time now, coming up on 8 years, I believe. I am currently the chair of the Young Statistician section, and I will be joining the RSS Council in 2025. For me, I joined the Future Leaders program kind of to see what leadership looked like going forward, and what we could make it become. I really kind of want to see diverse leadership in data organizations and in data professions, and I think that it's only with diversity that you can bring sort of really like excellent analytical work to the fore, regardless of your application. About me.
Thank you.
My turn. So I'm Jiao. I'm going to be interviewed today, and my day job, I'm a statistician. I look after the statistics, data science, and genomic epidemiology group within the Communicable Disease Surveillance Centre in Public Health Wales. I also chair the scoping committee in the Statistician for Society.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So just a brief background about the Future Leaders Program. It was motivated by the phrase, "You cannot be what you cannot see." And so the program aims to celebrate diversity of data professions and just empower professionals from underrepresented groups. So one of the key themes that came out of our early discussions was leadership, and just how there's a great interest and how our future leaders aspire to be leaders in data. So we're very grateful that Jiao could be with us and answer a few questions, which we will go ahead and Ni will be leading for us. So let's go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Vera. So I'll start off. And this first question is really, Jiao, is really about your introduction into the statistician career that you've chosen. So for me, especially, I didn't consciously decide to be a data scientist. I sort of ended up there out of interest. So I'm wondering, is that the same for you as well? And importantly, how you've gone from where you started out early career to where you are now. I'm quite interested to find out a bit more about those details.
Right. I don't know if it's conscious or not. So a bit of my background is my education background. So I did an actuary degree, which I enjoyed, but towards the end of it, I sort of figured out that I wasn't quite interested in the monetary side of things. I was quite interested in the probability side of the actuary part. So I then did a probability master's and a PhD. So that was sort of the background. So my education background would always be in math and stat. And then I think I wasn't I don't I will never call myself a career person. I wasn't quite sure what to, I didn't even think I should think about a career when I was doing my PhD. Um, I kind of enjoyed, the ride or in when I was in uni. I think it was towards the end of uh maybe I was in my writing up of my PhD. My supervisor asked me about, what is your plan of the PhD? I was like, I don't know. He was quite, he was indicating that the department I was doing my PhD would start recruiting for lecturers. So he was obviously indicating more of like a research academic kind of pathway. Um, but then I put myself in sort of a lecturer kind of shoes. Then I kind of like, I even though I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to be a lecturer. So I think at that point of time, I started to look for jobs, so I went for more of a research side of roles, so like postdoc to start with. So I got into I stayed in the uni for a number of years, but doing more like a researcher type of roles. That I was very fortunate to be part of like world leading teams and groups for research projects. It's mainly around doing using population level data, tackle research questions around population health. And then during those years, I had the opportunity to, use all sorts of different health data, whether it's public health, clinical health, or just like inequalities, wider determinants of health. So I had, the chance to actually use different types of data and then see how they could answer questions. So those years were really great years that, you learn with others and you observe what others do, and you have different opportunities like for training, writing papers, going to conferences, and also I think it's just I think those years I was just like a sponge. You just get like you learn all sorts of different things. And then I was very fortunate as well to work with a lot of like very senior statisticians across the country and look at how, they deal with their work on a daily basis, how they, tackle different problems, whether it is analytical or it's management. Um, I mean, I have to say, I didn't really think of, about management. I was more interested like why my code doesn't work, why this number comes out like, not as I expected. But in hindsight, I learned quite a lot non-statistical type of like project management, dealing with conflicts. I like till today, I still kind of reflect to, what those days. So if I were this person, what would I do? Um, I think there was again, I didn't really know where I want to go or what I wanted to do until um, I think the only thing I wasn't quite happy with those type of jobs was the fixed term nature of the jobs in like the research like officer like re- research fellows, those kind of jobs. They are how do I say it? Like they bonded to like funding. So if it's a 2-year project, you have a 2-year contract, and towards the end you'll be moved to another, project, but your contract is always, quite short, if I put it that way. So then I went into NHS as a statistician. and I've moved around different directorate within public health. So I've done policy, international health. I've done research evaluation, and then I'm now in communicable disease surveillance center. So it's more infectious disease focused at the moment. I don't know if that.
No, that's
you know.
excellent. That's giving me a very thorough overview of your early career and where you are now, and answered a lot of the questions I hadn't asked as well. No, thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you.
So the field, I think, of statistics generally, and maybe generally data professions, is perceived to be quite male-dominated traditionally. Jiao, do you feel that you had to approach certain aspects of your career moves or job transitions differently in order to sort of make an impact and succeed?
I get the sense of, underrepresented groups or, inequalities around different backgrounds of people, but I'm not a big fan of categorizing people by color or, background or age or, sex. I think to me, I don't look at people, with tags. People to me, if I don't know them, they're dummies. So they're not boy or girl, they are a person to me.
Yeah.
So I think I understand. I think so. I personally understand, being a woman, a man, the different. I can also see differences when, people approach things differently. And I think the top one would be I have friends who are brilliant analysts, both male and female. And then recently there was a very interesting observation I had. There was a job came up, and two of my friends happened to be interested, and they don't know, the intention of the other person. The girl went, am I actually qualified? And then she was like, do you think I should go to talk to the person who's recruiting and get a list of things to ask them? And then my other friend, who's, a boy, and he just like, I put an application in. So day two, he has put the application in, that was it. So both of them have a very similar background, and they're very similar in, in terms of seniority, if you really want to, kind of use that as a way to categorize people. But I can see, I think women sometimes are, they take things more, sensitive and think a bit too much sometimes. And also there is I don't know if it's a culture or if it's a belief or education that they're more willing to sacrifice for families, for example, like children, old people, caring for families, friends. So, everybody, each one of us have 24 hours a day. So if you are using your time to think and care about others, you have less time to think about for yourself. So that's simple. So I think for me, I definitely have some sort of trace about, those typical kind of like imposter syndrome sometimes. But I don't really think so. My upbringing was like, if something come to my way, the first thing I would think is how hard would that be? So I tend to, give it a go. While I know a lot of my friends, people who I work with, they take different approaches, and then probably sometimes they chose to, we miss this opportunity. So for me, I have to say, I don't really think I was, disadvantaged being a woman. And I was supported throughout education, career-wise, and I wasn't, disadvantaged in early career side. Very senior people I worked with, they always listen. So I think for me, I would keep that spirit. Is, understand what you really want, what makes you tick, and go for it. Um, I think this is just, for me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for that. So, the next question is about advising your younger self. So it sounds like you didn't consciously, and I'm a bit like that, right? I'm not ambitious. You get into education, you know what you want, and you're driving towards it. And maybe there's a perception that the people who do that can be more successful than others. It sounds like you've been successful. So my first question is, do you think you have been successful? So if you were to advise your younger self, would you have given them an alternative advice to say, well, soon after PhD, you need to select what you want, you need to pick an industry, give yourself 5 years and drive towards it?
So I'm not one of those people to start with. I tend to not regret for the past. So I don't really think that I have something to tell my youngest. But the only thing I think I reflect once was I didn't try very hard in uni. I enjoyed my uni life, not academically, but I didn't try very hard in uni, and I didn't. So I moved to the UK for school. So I was born and grew up in China, and um, when I before I my A levels. Because I live in Swansea. At that time, my uncle's family was here. So I only, just the only uni I would go is Swansea Uni. And then I didn't think twice about, doing master's or PhD in other universities. So I did all my degrees in the same place, living in the same house all those years. So I think I would probably say to my younger self when I was in uni, I probably should try, look to different lives, like, to go to like say England, Scotland, to go to other places for uni to have a look of, the cultures there, how people live, accents. So that was probably me. But I appreciate people were different. So I've seen people who are very career driven, which I think that is very, how do I put it? I think that's a very difficult way for me, because I think, how do I put it? I think you would need to understand what makes you tick. It could be a career, and then you could say how much salary people earn. You could say how senior people can be, or how many people in your team. So you can use different, indicators to say how successful you are. But as long as that generally makes you happy, then go for it. But for me, I don't think that makes me happy, and it would probably really have a really negative impact on my well-being. So I just appreciate that people are different. Um, and I think we just have to be genuine to yourself. To me, I think interest is generally more difficult to train. So you can train skills, but it's difficult to train, your real interest, of what really makes you happy.
Just as a follow-on from that, do you think this is a thing within the data profession? Because I have a lot of data friends, and we all seem to be similar. Like me, we are not driven, ambitious. Whereas I see friends in other professions who are a bit more driven. Do you think it's the nature of the beast? Is, I don't know, the people who end up in data are sort of more laid back. They enjoy the work more than the career and driving the career.
I think no. I think for me, my observation, I've seen loads of career-driven data scientists, data professionals. I think this is personality rather than
the industry.
field. And it is the golden golden time for data scientists.
That's quite interesting actually, because I think there's quite a few people that come in and out of data science, and they're very motivated by they think they can win quick, or sort of like get into the profession really quickly, and maybe they don't have the inherent kind of interest that you've sort of shown. So there are kind of two parallel streams within data science and stats, of the people that really love it and want to pursue it and want to find balance in that, and the others that are sort of looking at it as a sort of mechanism to something better in general. So the RSS has kind of played a big part of your volunteering time. How do you think your relationship with the RSS has influenced your career trajectory and sort of allowed you to develop into a leader?
I kind of like, so I think I know RSS, recent years have really expanded, to include data science. But when I joined ISS, this is many years ago, that they were only just statisticians. And I think statisticians were kind of a rare breed. So it's always nice to have a community, even though, I don't really know everybody in the community, but it's good to know that there's a group out there that you have the same interest, you can talk to, and you always have something kind of to fall back on. So I quite like so I tend to go to the conferences and join the training courses when I can. And then I became a committee member of the Wales local group. We tend to arrange different sessions throughout the year. I think at that point of time we even had a small budget that we can organize events or something. And I think in parallel I was also volunteering in the S4S, which at that time it was tiny. So it was when it just started that there were no committees, there were just Amica and a group of people who are interested in volunteering, and I had so I volunteered a few projects, and I think it was I can't remember now actually. But then I think once I saw a call to call for committee members for scoping committee, so I put an application in. And then it was always Rob who was chairing, the initiative. I think we had again I can't remember, a few years ago, maybe we had everything become very sort of formalized. Also, we have our governance in place. We have a scoping committee, reviewing committee. I know we also have dedicated program management support, which I think I think that was the point. Rob asked me if I wanted to chair scoping committee. Yeah, I think that was a few years ago anyway. So for me, I think my interactions with RSS is always keep learning professionally. So as a statistician, you need to keep your skills sharp. I'm saying that, but like, because I think because this is an interview for leadership, but like the more senior you become, the less that you will do. So I mean, I go through a day without even touching R, which is common for me. And if you look at my calendar, it's just packed with meetings. So there is no, time that you can actually do some stats. But what I do, I just keep kind of reading papers, rather than, actually doing like coding, but kind of keeping up to date of the new methods. These days, I tend to read a bit more around, the new methods applied to public health instead of just, technical development of one method. So I think you need to keep your skills sharp as a statistician. And secondly is my experience with the local group and the S4S. I think this is about more managing different projects, managing different packages, people, deal with, I think, but especially as a committee chair, it's only when things can't be resolved that then they would be brought to you. And then how to tackle, conflicts, management, delays, questions that there's no answers at all. So I think these kind of experience help me career-wise. And I also think these skills are transferable that you can bring to different roles in your career.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot for that. The next question is around data literacy. I think this is pertinent given the fact that you work in public health as well. The question is around how important you think data literacy is. I think primarily for the public, but then for us working in data as well, because sometimes there's an assumption that because you work in data, you're automatically data literate, and you might not be. Maybe not even in all domain, maybe just a specific domain. So what do you think is the importance of data literacy, especially given the times we are in where there's a lot of data available and not all of that is accurate? And also secondly, can you talk a bit more about what you in your work do to help with data literacy, especially for the public who consume some of the data that you guys churn out from your work?
So I think we had this conversation recently in work. So we have I have about 13 people in my team, and we have a mixture of epidemiologists, data scientists, researchers, data analysts. They come from all different backgrounds. We were talking about specifically whether we can find a statistic training for epidemiologists. So if you are not familiar with epidemiologist, so this is a profession using data, quantitatively qualitative, to understand what happened when and which population group, basically. So for epidemiologists especially, they don't come from a numerical background. Our data scientists mostly coming from math, computer science, engineering. but then the rest come from all different backgrounds. So I think what we've concluded that we can't really provide a professional like CPD type of training. Statistics, if somebody wants to train in statistics, is about formal training, so like academic training. But what we really expect is the respect of data. So data doesn't talk themselves, it's people who talk for them. So I'm sure you would have seen misuse of data or misinterpretation of data. Sometimes it's unconscious, sometimes it's not. And I think for data professions, I would expect people coming from relevant background or they have relevant years of experience. And they can demonstrate how, in practice, how they deal with data. And this is not difficult to find out. But for general public, I think especially after COVID, I think, most people think they're epidemiologists by now, just looking at COVID data. Sometimes if you read arguments on social media, they're just hilarious about how people interpret. But I think that's a good thing. Now people are actually talking about it. Before that, people just not interested. Now they're actually interested in it. It's about how we can educate the public to use data. So for us in the communicable disease surveillance sector, we report mostly infectious disease numbers. And you can, we've seen all sorts of different use of data, and people take bit of data from here, take bit of data from the other report and put them together and put up, freedom of information request to us and say why. So we had to go and explain, which is fine. But I think for us is about how we lead interpretation of our data. So firstly, share data, always share data, publish downloadable data with reports, and try to use, kind of lay language especially for the main message of our reports. I have to say, a lot of our reports, even though they're in the public domain, they are specialized. They're not for a random person, pick a random person from the street. Readers of some of our reports, they are professionals. They have their own judgments. So we can't really guarantee that we use, lay language for everything. But we try to at least use the lay, provide a lay summary. And we also try to use a more kind of visual way to demonstrate some results. It's more visually attractive to start with, and it's easier for people to understand. So for us, it's about reducing the misinterpretation of our data by the public. I think that's also a way of educating public to read our data, our reports. I used to do some in terms of just education in general. I used to do some what they call so we tend to go to schools to do different lectures or activities with kids in school who are interested in math. And there was a very popular activity that we use glitters to put on one person's hand, and then I ask them to randomly shake hands with others. That this is a way to demonstrate probability. But it's like, the glitter could be seen as an infectious disease, and you pass it around. That sort of thing. I think, in those numerical skills, we need to train them, which is, we have to train them, but I think we also need to kind of both foster some interest from a younger age. There are stigma around, math is daunting. We probably have to work on that perspective, that this is definitely a perception thing, which is everybody can do it. It's whether you want to do it or not.
So if we switch gears a little bit away from data literacy towards leadership and your thoughts on that, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how important it is to you as a manager to kind of foster leadership within your own team, and how you go about doing that. You said that you manage 13 people. There's a lot of people to kind of like think about the development of over time, and it'd be great to hear how you aim for progression in that kind of group.
I guess the first thing is about understanding the person. So there are people, and that each person have, they can have, very little or like a lot of ideas of their development and which area they would really want to develop into. I have a data scientist who doesn't want to do any management. I have, epidemiologist who wanted to be general manager. So people are very different. I think as a, if you call it a leader, or a senior manager, you need to understand each person, what they really want to do. Again, go back to, I generally believe interest is something you can't train, and that's what makes people tick. So that's the first thing I would say. So if somebody really wanted to pick up some management skills, and then I think it's about dedicate, like give them opportunities, delegate, projects, program to them. I think I tend to do, like my PhD supervisor used to say, like a PhD journey is like me walking in a forest where there's no path. And then he would be probably, sitting on top of a tree and watching me just going round. And until if I hit something, like he would blow the whistle. So I think that's a very good way to summarize how I would help people to pick up management skills. So I let people do what they do, because people have to take ownership to be able to pick up management skills. If I expect or anticipate a risk, I would intervene. And also as a senior manager, you would need to, be prepared to take relevant responsibilities for people you look after, and let them know you are always there to support them, so they know they can fall back to. So I think this is a two-way thing. Each one of the relationship between you and someone, who is more junior, it's different to another pair.
Great. Thanks a lot for that. I think that there's one final question, and it's still on leadership, and it's about the advice you give someone who wants to be a leader, and importantly, be successful at it. So not just to end up being a leader, but be a very good one. I know not all of us will want to do it, but for those who really would eventually want to lead and be a successful, what is the one piece of advice that you'd give to them?
I think it would be try to be nice and be you.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. No, that's good. That's nice. That's quite impactful and simple as well. Yes, I think that's all the questions we had, Beryl. I don't know if you.
Okay.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for making this time available to us. I think there were so many golden nuggets for us, and even the wider audience will definitely be able to take away. I particularly loved what you said about keeping a positive spirit, and just giving things a go and following what makes you tick. I love the word tick now. And I think, we're all encouraged to, of course, develop ourselves and be driven and all of that. But I think, like you kept on saying, it's important for us to be authentic to ourselves and try to pursue what we enjoy the most. And then also what you said about like how important community is, like the RSS, and then just a reminder to keep developing professionally, because I guess the more senior you are, the less stats you may actually even be engaged in. So thank you very much.